then you're going to conduct yourself in my presence as such. And the moment
Welcome to Knowledge is Power Podcast Live with your host, Tony Redfro, and my co-hosts, LaDonna Sherwood and Francis Larkins.
Knowledge is Power Podcast Live starts now.
Hey, what's up? Hey, welcome to Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Oh, wow, we're back. Hey, my co-host, LaDonna Sherwood, Haley, at the bottom of the screen. I have our crew member from the, what we call ourselves on Thursdays?
Roundtable Talk.
Roundtable Talk. Yeah, that's Terry Roy at the top, and Chris Jones with us. And our special guest tonight is the Beaumont Independent School District Chief of Police, Joe Malbrough. Hey, man, it's glad to have you here. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mr. Renfro. Thank you for having me, and thank you to the team and to you all that are present. Thank you for what you do.
Oh, man, we're glad to have you. Like my co-host says, this is one of her special topics. She likes to get involved in the schools, and because she has students at the school, and this is what the school really needs is parents that want to get involved with their kids, not just with her kids, but all the kids, you know. And this is what we need in Beaumont Independent School District. Period. Yes. Okay.
Period.
So we got to go here. And we're going to move on to our topic tonight is a talk with the Chief of Police. And let's see. I hear you saying about my music. Wait a minute. I'm getting it down here. Hold on. There we go. All right. Let's go. All right. Now. Okay. So, Joe, talk to us. Tell us, Chief. Well, let me just make it more formal. Chief Joe Malbrough, you got the show.
Yes, sir. Well, again, thank you, Tony, for having me. Definitely, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to come before you all. Again, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief of Police of the Beaumont Independent School District Police Department, and I am honored to serve in such capacity. I definitely want to thank my parents and the community for entrusting this noble task and assignment. However, that being said, my overall responsibility, of course, is to ensure the overall safe environment of our school population, of our school environment, to ensure our children have a conducive environment for learning and educators have the environment for them to be able to teach our children. So, of course, that's what I am tasked with doing, and ensuring that our children are safe while they're there, as well as our staff, including those guests who come into our properties or facilities for whatever the situation may be. Most of the times it's our parents who are supporting our children for athletic events or whatever that might be. My job, of course, is to ensure that there is a safe environment for all that are on the Beaumont Independent School District's properties. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Joe.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
do you feel like that's going? How do you feel like that task is being undertaken? Are you feeling like campuses are more safe, or do you feel like there's some room for improvement? Can you give us a kind of a synopsis of what do you feel like the level is? Are we meeting our goals, or what's happening?
Well, good question, LaDonna. Ms. Sherwood. So, of course, yes, it's always a growing, if you will, environment. We can always seek for our betterment and improvement in our school district, as well as even in our communities. So, of course, with that being said, I believe that we're doing well, considering we are definitely looking for the partnership, of course, with our parents. I think that's going to be one of the most important things to this piece, to this component, to make everything somewhat flow in the manner that we would like it to flow. And so, that being said, again, I believe it's going well, but it can be better. It can be better, and we're not satisfied with just status quo. We definitely want to make sure that that environment is as safe as possible. It's because we want our children to have that experience, I guess, that we had when we came through school. We want them to experience a wonderful time in school because school is a memorable moment for them or for each individual. And so we want them to have that, of course, and that will entail for them having that safe environment for them to be able to thrive in, for them to be able to learn in, as well as socialize and grow. So, again, I believe that we're fine where we are, but there's always room for growth. And we're always looking for those opportunities, of course, that we can do things better. We can reposition anything, or we can add new measures that we can do. But one of the most important things, of course, Ms. Sherwood, is that having that family support with our parents or with our guardians of our students, having them involved, that is going to be very impactful for us.
Well, you
I
answer that
totally
question.
agree. As a lifelong volunteer, I wouldn't say lifelong, but a long time volunteer with BISD from elementary to high school, you would be amazed at how many lives you actually can touch, and not just not just the children, especially when you start to, like I said, really volunteer and meet the need of not just the child, but the teacher in the classroom as well as the parent to understand what it is that's being taught so that the teacher and the parent and the child or the students are all on the same page. And it's not going to take just the teachers and the administration on campus. It's not going to just take, just the community, but it's going to take all of us as a whole, excuse me, to build and rebuild a future worth looking forward to, especially within our children. So I totally agree about having the opportunity to volunteer. I know LaDonna had mentioned about having some problems with the website or the approval. I'm not sure what the policies are currently, but I know not much has changed from VIPs, which was volunteers in public schools, and now we have PAWS, uh, PAWS. I'm not sure what the acronym means anymore, but we do have that opportunity available, and it's accessible from the BISD website. So speaking of volunteers, just to let you know, if you would really like to be a part of not just your child's life, but children's lives, parents' lives, and this community as a whole, that's one great way to actually do it. But LaDonna, I would say reapply,
For sure,
and
for sure.
and ask, to just to make sure that there was no undersight in their oversight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But because the volunteers are greatly needed throughout the entire school district, especially individuals like yourself, like I mentioned backstage. Madonna is like one of the realest younger females that I can remember just being in public with. I mean, she's always the same. Um, so I know she would be an asset to many of kids in the
Yes,
community.
sir.
So, same goes for Mr. Terry Roy. He is phenomenal when it comes to public speaking at city council. which, you know, public speaking isn't just good at city council, but it's good to have anywhere you go, and you, you you have that access, that tool. Individuals that are actually trying to do something in the community, I commend you for volunteering, and I push you to volunteer some more.
And I appreciate that, Chris, and as well as Miss Ladonna. I am definitely going to check into that for you, because we definitely want your advocacy, and we definitely want you to be involved. I can hear it, your passion, and as you mentioned, you do have little ones that's in the school, so I appreciate that. And every time we do, we have our parents who want to be involved and are passionate about, the welfare of their children, whether it's academic, athletic, whatever it may be. We salute that and we welcome that. And so I will definitely check into that for you and see what may have been the problem regarding that. Is because we definitely want you on board. Absolutely.
I appreciate you. Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you foresee right now currently being the biggest challenge with the Beaumont ISD police officers? Is it fighting, or is it more like disruptions? I mean, like, where can parents most help out in assisting police officers? Because I'm kind of not aware of whatever the main issues are. I know that people are like, oh, people are fighting and they're being disrupted, but I imagine there's probably more in the halls than actual classrooms. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Right. And so yes, ma'am. And actually, this school year kind of started off. Normally in the springtime, our youngsters normally, I guess you can say, they get a little antsy, and normally we see a lot of that activity towards the latter part of the year. However, this year is a little different. It kind of started off in the beginning of the year with our students being disruptive. There was a lot of fighting that was taking place. However, I can definitely say that that situation pretty much has been remedied. We put some additional measures in place so that we can address the initial fighting that was taking place. We got a lot of community support, as well as the involvement with the Justice of the Peace courts to address some of those concerns. Again, the PACS program, the parents and community support services. So it was a combination of a lot of different things. We also have involved our safety educational training to whereas we have a lot of interacting with our students. So we provide the safety education training for our students that are age appropriate, so that we can kind of come in and address some of the concerns that we believe that are addressing or impacting our students at that age and their peer group. It allows for the officers, of course, to not only provide that professional relationship, but establish that. And so we want to definitely bridge that gap there. So again, a culmination of a lot of different things that we were doing to address some of those concerns. But Ms. Sherwood, I guess right now, one of the things, of course, that we can have our parents do to help us, as well as even some of our students, those who are willing to participate, is we just want our parents to not only be involved, say, for instance, academically, maybe going to a PTA meeting or supporting their children academically, as well as athletically. However, we definitely want them to be involved in terms of knowing who their friends are, knowing what our young people are doing on social media, because that has somewhat been a very major problem in our district. Having our parents be aware of who their children are associating with. Those are very important components that can be very helpful. And so if there's something that you see that might be questionable,
Right.
we would ask that you reach out to us,
Right.
contact us. We have had several parents in the past, Ms. Sherwood, to reach out if in fact they may have been, for example, a weapon inside of the house, and grandmother
Right.
didn't know what to do, but she was afraid that her grandbaby would probably get a hold of it.
Right.
And she would reach out to us, and we assisted her with that, or we assisted them with those.
Right. And it's ironic that you say that too, because recently there was an incident with my daughter with some girls that were outside of school doing like internet groups and chats and whatever, and they were starting like cyberbullying that maybe didn't even start at the school. But you're right, had I reached out to the BISD police department, I guess so that's a way of kind of I mean, you're right, being aware of what's happening outside of the school, so before it hits the school, you can reach out to somebody. So I'm glad that you said that. So people that are watching, if your kids come up to you and they're saying, well, they messaging me in the group, or they text messaging me on Snap, or they harassing me in I forget, all the groups that the kids are on, but that's a way that we can kind of head it off before it gets to the school, right? I like that.
Absolutely. And again, uh, uh, Ms. Sherwood team, we see so many different social media postings and photos, even videos of our young people, whether they're engaging in fighting. But the most alarming thing as of late has been a lot of our young people with weapons. That has been very alarming. And these are, in some cases, are minors, right? These are minors. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. And so, of course, that's one of our greatest fears, of course, having a weapon enter into our schools. Again, it can send not only the school, campus, district in a frenzy, but also the community. And so, unfortunately, but seeing these photos of our young students, in some cases, a lot of them are students. They're minors. And you don't necessarily have, say, for instance, parents in the photo. So it's a problem when you have minors in possession of weapon. I'm talking serious weaponry. Um, and I get it. I know Texas is a open carry state. However, anytime you see a weapon in the hands of a young person, that in itself is alarming. And so we definitely want to be able just to make sure that our parents is very aware of some of the activities that their children may be engaging in. We have reached out to so many different parents in regards to that, those that we have identified. And unfortunately, most of the times the parents they don't own a weapon, and they're not aware that their child, they're surprised. They're surprised. And so, and a lot of times we get, well, little Johnny has not been here for a whole week or 2 weeks, and so a lot of those things pose a great alarm to us, because again, God forbid, but we never want to have to deal with that type of situation, whether it's that or some other issues that might take place, as you mentioned, LaDonna, in the community. And oftentimes it seems to find its way into our schools, which kind of leads to our young people engaging in whether it be verbal altercation, which also leads into a physical altercation. So it's a lot of things, but I can assure you, but having that parent support, that parent involvement, you see something, say something. And so, again, I want to say this. In our schools, our young people, and seems to have somewhat of a code of ethics amongst themselves. They don't want to share or tell any information that one of their friends may be engaged in a criminal-like act or criminal mischief or whatever it may be. Of course, the old term, it says that they don't want to snitch. They often say on their colleague. They say it's almost as if you're telling on a family member. And so, and again, I disagree with that. Is because we definitely need to know that information, especially when it comes to another child being harmed, or the damage to property, etc. We definitely want our young people to know that there are appropriate channels that they can go to. We have what is now called the P3 Tips app. We are partnered with Crime Stoppers, so this is Campus Crime Stoppers, to where our young students, they can report these activities anonymously. And I can share with you, Mr. Renfro and team, that our children are doing it. Our high school and our middle school students, they are relaying some of this information to us, which allows us to be able to investigate these concerns that are being brought forth, and to be able to address those issues. So definitely we're making some headways with it. But again, we definitely need the support of, again, not only just our students, our parents, but also some additional stakeholders in the community that can just be supportive of this whole process, because it's not just a school district issue. This is a community issue. And we definitely want to make sure that we have a safe environment for all that stays in actually the city of Beaumont.
Yes, I can agree with you, Chief, because it is a community issue. And one other thing is that I want to address is that I want the audience to know, is that our listeners to know that this is not the only school district that's having problems like this. This is not. I'm in Houston now, and it's a dangerous situation over there, and kids are coming with rifles and guns that the parents don't even know anything about it. They're clueless of what's going on, um, and the kids on this campus are not telling on each other, like you said. They don't want to be snitches, you know. So the thing is that I appreciate you doing is trying to get ahead of this, ahead of the curve, so that we can prevent some of these things from happening. But the only way we can make this thing happen is the community to get involved. The parents got to get involved. Parents need to go in and sit in the classroom and see what goes on in those schools, man. I tell you, them cats something else. I don't even want
And
to.
then too, Tony, we may need to post that anonymous tip line phone number for students who may want to, um, report some information anonymously. Maybe we can get Chief to give us that information. And then when you do that, Chief, I do have one other question. Can you speak to mental illness, or does BISD have like the police portion of BISD? Are they handling mental, people that may have instabilities or some issue that's creating some of the problems is there a specific part of that, or is that still just handled by counselors or what?
Yes, ma'am. Well, it's handled by counselors, and thank you for that question. It's handled by counselors, but also law enforcement. Our police department, basically, our officers, with the exception of the 2, 3 on new that we have onboarded. However, they're going to be going through the mental health training, and so our officers undergo a training so that they are able to not only deal but also to somewhat detect those. Matters that are presented that might exist in our students, so that we can provide them the best support services that they need, as well as again and working and partnering with our counselors. The counselors are now also doing a very heavy push on that as well. It's because we understand that a lot of our citizens, as well as even our students, often may be subjected or may have to deal with those illnesses. And so, yes, ma'am, we are doing everything possible to ensure that we are able to provide the support services for our students who may suffer with mental illness. And so that is something that is very key and somewhat priority in our district. And so we are doing everything possible to address those concerns as it relates to mental illness.
I have
Um,
another. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
what what percentage would you say is more mental? Because I believe that's a lot of it. Because a kid is not just going to be just bad for no reason, in my opinion. What percentage would you say that it is mental?
Well, Mr. Roy, let me say this. I don't have that percentage, that actual
Mm.
percentage, but I would say it's a very, very small, minute percentage in our district. I don't know. I would even say that 1 to 2%, uh, if that may exist. And again, I probably shouldn't even speak on those percentages. That does have some form of mental matters because I'm not the expert in that area. So let me just say I don't know.
Let me help you out there, Chief.
Go ahead.
Do you think that because of what we've gone through in the last 2 years, the pandemic, the COVID, kids out of school for a certain length of time, and family are going through issues because of the lack of being together too long, or going through the stress, because the pandemic has been a stress to not just kids, but it be parents and everybody's involved. So that could cause some of the problems, I would suggest. I mean, that,
Absolutely.
right, that could
Yeah,
cause some of the problems.
Yes, sir.
yeah. Because
And
some situations I know firsthand, and it's a lot of like mental things that go unchecked, for as chemical imbalances, drug
Right.
use, just a lot of different things. That's why I tend to think it's more than 1%. Because there's some things that I know that I can't speak on right now
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
because of confidentiality.
Yes, sir.
But you'll be amazed at the amount of chemical imbalances that kids suffer that go unchecked. by the parents.
Yeah,
So I would say that 1% is probably higher.
yeah, and then not
Yeah,
only that,
and
the parents are going through so much as well. But
yeah, because I
again,
go into a lot of homes and I see a lot of different things that are happening at home.
right,
A
Yes,
lot.
And
sir.
Terry, you brought up something too about drug use. So I have a question about that. That brings me to my next question. I know that the state as a whole and the nation really is dealing with an opioid epidemic, and people are taking pills and doing drugs that are medical drugs or whatever the case may be. Is BISD seeing like the opioid epidemics bleeding into the schools? Do y'all see any of this taking place, or is that affecting the job that y'all are doing in any way? Do you know?
Well, no, ma'am, Ms. Madonna, we don't have. Um, Let me say this. Unfortunately, there is a small percentage of you know the drug traffic that's in our schools, as there would be in any other school. Uh, However, not to that degree. We are still addressing those concerns anytime, of course, we get those type of information. As a matter of fact, that's one of the high things that we get when, in fact, one of our students relay that information of a student who may be possible trafficking drugs or trying to sell drugs on campus. We get those quite often, but it's not a major or epidemic, so to speak, that it's a major problem inside of our schools. However, it is there, and we are addressing it every time that matter, of course, is presented or we have knowledge of that. We address those concerns as it relates to enforcement in those areas. Yes.
Yeah, I have 5 kids in the district, and I get 5 different stories about some of the things that's happening. I just hate that 4 of them are boys because they seem to be going through the most problems, and they're my one granddaughter. What do you think a solution is to that? Because when I was in school, a long time ago, we had peer-to-peer group meetings, and that seems to help some. Do you think that's something that they can put in schools, or do you think that would help?
Yes, sir. Well, listen, any type of peer group support, um, pastoral support, and we have programs, of course, now that we're working on. Of course, also have pastors involved, but also some of our community leaders, some of our coaches, uh, Mr. Chris. And so we have avenues by which, again, those representatives are able to come in and to dialogue with our young men, as well as even our young ladies that are in our district, because we believe that our children need as much support as they can possibly get. And as you mentioned earlier, Ms. LaDonna, in reference to the COVID pandemic, how it has impacted our children, our community, that has created a great bit of anxiety in most cases. And so our children, as well as even our parents, are still trying to kind of navigate through that whole process and some kind of way trying to get back to some kind of
normalcy.
normalcy.
Hmm.
But absolutely, having as much peer group support is also another key component, I believe, that can be very helpful for our children. It's kind of like we're having to reinvent that village. Let me say, we're having to reinvent that village. When we were coming up, we had that village, and for some reason, it seems that the village has kind of gone away. And so our children now, they're kind of grown up without that additional support that we had, if you will, when I use that term, the village. And so I believe us being able to reinvent that in a modern day time in society, I believe that will also be key in supporting our young children while they're navigating through their school experience.
I did have one other question, because I know with all the turmoil that's been happening over the past couple of years with policing in communities and all the friction, how are Beaumont ISD officers often met with the same resistance that we saw in the streets over the past couple of years? or does the community feel a sense of a connection to BISD officers that they don't really share with regular BPD officers? And then the second part of that question is, are the BISD officers trained in like de-escalation tactics and how to, calm students that may be aggressive or overwhelmed or irate or whatever they may be? Do y'all have a specific procedure that y'all follow to maybe not, make things worse or kick off more? I don't know, with everything that's happening, how are y'all addressing it?
Sure, and yes, ma'am. And I guess to your first point, which is why we have our safety education program, our SCOPE program, which allows our officers, of course, to engage with our students on a daily basis. And again, it's not necessarily just when they're involved in some type of athletic curriculum uh, process. This is also academically. But this allows us to build that professional relationship with our students. So not only do we see them in school, but we also encounter them on the outside in our community when we see our children in our community. And so we have not had that experience, and then we're very fortunate not to have had that. And so, which is why it's important that we have a very aggressive push of us being a part of the support process, the educational environment, but working with our young people. To your second question, yes, our officers also undergo de-escalation training, crisis intervention, ways, of course, to mitigate problems when they do arrive. Well, most officers, let me say, if not all officers in the state of Texas, have to go through that. Again, it, it, I guess you can say school-based law enforcement is a little different from how traditional law enforcement is. Of course, it's because we're now working in a school setting, and there's a lot of other additional parameters that are there. However, the fundamentals of policing is pretty much the same. You basically just have to understand that being a communicator, effective communicator with the citizens that you serve is very important. So that's one of the things I harp on with my team, is that we definitely have to make sure that we're being professional, that we're being courteous when we're dealing with the public, and that we're treating our citizens with dignity. And the majority of our clients, of course, they're children. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're doing that firsthand with our young people. So giving them the encounters that they may have with law enforcement, one to be a one that's professional, one that's also welcoming, if you will, and not one that can be confrontational or adversarial, as we've seen in the past in some other communities that may have had those problems. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that
Hey,
question.
Chief,
Yes.
the police department has been with the district for quite a few years now,
Yes, sir.
and a lot of the listeners and the community really doesn't know what's the purpose. What was the purpose for the police department? Could you give us a breakdown of your department personnel and what protocols that you guys do, how supportive you are for the activity that you have to go through, or that you are prepared for? So can you break that down to us a little bit?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tony, for that question. So, of course, our department was established back in 2007. So we've been in existence for that period of time. We are Texas peace officers. As any other Texas peace officers, we have the same powers and privileges and authority, let me say, as we serve in this capacity. Our jurisdiction now is pretty much the city of Beaumont, same as would be the city police officers. However, we primarily, specifically, our scope is aimed towards working inside of the school sector. Our department roughly right now consists of roughly 20 or so Texas peace officers. We have 30 public safety officers, which are somewhat like an extension of our department. They're like security personnel, which also assist and aid the administration. There's some components that law enforcement is not allowed to do that our public safety officers are able to assist in that capacity. We have roughly 36 crossing guards. The crossing guards also fall under my supervision as well. That serves the entire city of Beaumont. So we have quite a bit of personnel. We have our own dispatch, full-fledged dispatch department. We have our CID department, Criminal Investigations Department. So we have a full-fledged police department here in the Beaumont Independent School District. And so I guess the sole purpose of this was so that we can address the those concerns as it relates to criminality that were taking place in our schools. To have someone that would be able to immediately address those concerns, as opposed to having, say, for instance, law enforcement respond from the outside to those matters. That's often have been a time lapse in, say, for instance, the respond to some of those concerns that may have been presented. And so having the police department was a way, of course, that the district at that time felt would have been beneficial as well as even cost efficient for the district at that time. I think at that time, and back in '07, we had the city, I think they were partnering with the city of Beaumont, contracting out
Right,
the law
right, right.
enforcement to work in there. So I believe this was also a cost efficient process for the district of having their own police department established. And so we've been again operating since, and hopefully, we can continue to grow and continue to serve our community and our students in our district.
I would like
Well,
to. I appreciate the relationship that I've seen many of your officers and security. I guess like deal with the community, with the students, and I guess like one of the main reasons is like uh, when you dig, or not really dig, but when you acquaint yourself with some of your students, you find out that the student is probably a child of your classmate, a grandchild of one of your teachers from the past. So the community is interwoven as it stands. We don't really have to go far to find the relationship. All we have to do, like Chief said, is build on it. And once we build on that relationship, I don't know what it is, Madonna. We both digging in our eye tonight, man. But like,
I got something in my eye. I don't
yeah,
even know what.
man. But
But
I will say that to to like kind of tick back a little bit. I recall a lot of our families, children included, having, I guess, some anxieties, maybe even some signs of depression, even some trauma after Harvey, after Imelda. So I will say I appreciate the medical, the mental health component, and the training that you install with your officers, and to recognize it is the most important thing ever. Whether it's on a whether it's in a child or an adult, because I've seen in many instances where we were in the school and something happened in the community, and this is the Beaumont Police Department and the BISD Police Department's partnership or communication. Um, Something happens in the community, they get in touch with the chief. Chief gets in touch with that campus officer, and immediately that campus is locked down or secured to a state where no one can enter into the campus. I'm talking about some of the best training I've seen in like local public schools. So I definitely commend you, Chief, for training your officers again on the importance of sustaining life on campus. I will say, as an old product of BISD, I graduated. If y'all see back here, that's those Jaguars back there. But I graduated from Central in 1999. But when I was in middle school, and even elementary school, we had officers in the school, but they weren't like aggressive officers. They were teaching us about drugs and teaching us about alcohol y'all remember Dare, y'all remember the Chicken Club. So we had relationship that was coming through with a lot of our officers, like Officer Ned, Officer Stevens,
That's right.
Officer Stevens' son. So like because before our sheriff was sheriff, she was an officer, and she
That's right.
volunteered in a lot of public schools. Same goes for my constable, Joe Stevens. He was an officer, and he served the community. Officer Martin. I mean, it's so many. Big Baker. It's so many officers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That
And
have
I would argue that even today, every event that I go to and every campus that I'm on, there are kids talking to these officers. Like they're
yeah,
talking to them and having conversations with them.
yeah,
And I can appreciate that. Like I am happy to say that whatever accountability you're holding your officers to is not like on the campus, the people don't know the officer or they're not familiar
right,
with the officer or they don't
right,
feel comfortable with the officer enough to
right,
talk to the officer. You always gonna find some students, whether it's at a game, whether it's at a event, whatever it may be. If there's an officer there, somebody's gonna be talking to that officer, or hey, or this or that, or just having small talk and conversations, and that matters because
Agree.
that means that the officer has put themselves in a position not to be standoffish or not to be unapproachable or not to be, if those officers or the kids know that they're there in the capacity of help, and that matters. It goes
And
a long way.
a lot of kids, I mean, believe it or not, the police officers are role models.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter if they're male or female. I mean, they're role models, and so that gives them something to look at and maybe want to do better or achieve in their lifestyle. Uh, I love the dialogue, and we've been here at dialoguing and talking and chatting with the chief of Beaumont Independent School District, Chief of Police Joe Malbrough. Joe, we just love having you on. I'm enjoying the talk. We're getting educated, and I like to continue this dialogue on a regular basis. And you and I,
Absolutely.
we're going to sit down and talk and see what way we can do this, and so we can help bridge the communication gap between parents, school staff, and administration. We need to bridge that gap for communication. We need to have a communication. The parents need to we have to have a way to get the parents more involved in their students and their kids in the school district. This is the only way it's going to work. And it's just going to take the community. It's going to take us to do this.
Yes, sir.
absolutely.
So I think we just need to, you and I will sit down and let's see if we can come up with something so we can consistently keep everyone involved in our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, I don't want to leave this out. The teachers. I applaud the teachers for going through what they do.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing an
Thank you.
outstanding
They are.
job. Yeah,
They are.
for the little pay. So but it's a wonderful thing to have teachers and to teach the things that the teachers have to go through.
It's
It's just blow my mind, and they're the least respected employee there. So we want to make sure that we give them some help as well.
absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Have you
Um,
have you ever thought about? I mean, let me ask this: are y'all the only form of law enforcement that's in the schools? And have y'all ever thought about bringing anybody else in, like maybe sheriff department or anything like that?
yes, sir. And thank you for that. So we have partnership with, of course, the city of Beaumont, the sheriff's department, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, as well as the Jefferson County Constable's Office, as well as the Texas Highway Patrol DPS. So we have a partnership with all of our local agencies, of course, to come in and support, whether they're supporting us basically daily, just as extra boots on the ground and eyes, and from the security standpoint, as well as assisting us from the athletic events that we do have. As well as even with the training we do, Chris mentioned earlier in terms of that training, we do a lot of our training with, say, for instance, Beaumont PD, all the school district law enforcement, as well as even those who work inside of our schools. They're required to go through active shooter like training Our department trains, of course, with the city of Beaumont and a host of other trainings that we are required to do, just to ensure that we are again able to address any of those emergency concerns that we might deal with. I think also Chris mentioned in terms of those drills, we've had our fair share of drills. Unfortunately, a lot of that was a result of our young students utilizing their cell phones or technology to create those false alarms. As a result, we had to really deal and respond every time one of those alerts came out, whether it's having to do a lockdown, or having to do a secure lockout, having to do a shelter in place, you name it. We were doing it. And every one of those incidents, Mr. Renfro and team, you had the agencies coming, whether that's Beaumont PD, the fire marshals, the ATF, FBI. They were coming any and every time we received a bomb threat. They were coming, and so yes, we go through all of those drills with our students, as well as those that are somewhat activated by our young people, as well as our teachers undergo a host of drills, civilian response to active shooter events. We have to go through these trainings with our teachers, our administrators, so that they also know how to respond and assist in guiding our children during those type of crisis-like situations. So we want to make sure that we are prepared to deal and address those issues if they arrive. So parents, like Ms. LaDonna, that you can be assured that we're doing everything possible to safeguard your little ones, your children, while they're in our care. So we undergo a host of trainings just to ensure that we're keeping that environment safe, but also we're doing everything necessary to ensure their well-being as well while they're with us.
Again, thank you,
No,
Joe, Chief
I was gonna
Joe
say, I
Deborah. We
know
got
in
this.
closing,
Yeah. Oh, you got to do that? Okay, go
no, I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I know that we're getting ready to close, but if the chief could give us that anonymous tip line and maybe tell us where the parents can volunteer one more time so that we can just make sure that we post that or put that on our page, so we can get that out to the community, because that's important information. And parents, let me make a plea to you, an appeal to you. Do come to the schools. Do fill out that volunteer application and do get involved. No matter if it's an hour or 2 hours or whatever time that you have that you can come and get involved. It may not just impact your kid, it may impact other kids. And sometimes just being there, just having an adult with a smiling face and an open heart and just a genuine care for concern goes a long way with our children. And they need that. They need to know that we love them, we care for them, and we're there for them. And that if nobody else loves them and want them, that we do, we do, we do. And we've got to be found doing something to show that. We got to be found doing something.
I
Thank you.
totally agree with that.
And
Thank
Joe, usually I don't. When we close the show, it's one of us going to close the show out for us. But tonight we're going to ask you to close it out by giving us a point. What do you like to have? What do you like to say that can help the parents and the students and the teachers to help to keep the schools safe? And what can you say about that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Renfro and team. So, what I would say is definitely parents, as was mentioned by several of the panelists, all of the panelists, that we definitely need our parent support. We need our parents to be very mindful of what their children are doing, especially with social media as being one of the biggest trends now that our young kids are engaged in. Is because a lot of our young kids are engaging in a lot of mischief, utilizing these cell phones and that technology. A great majority of them are doing the right thing. A great majority of our kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing inside of the schools. But it's that small percentage that often gets a lot of the attention and somehow has a greater impact. So we just ask that our parents just be mindful of not only where your children are, but who they're with. Know who their friends are. And every so often check into their cell phones and just to kind of be aware of some of the activities that they're engaging in. And lastly, if in fact you all can encourage your children to participate in the Campus Crime Stoppers program. It's an anonymous app. You can download the app. It's called the P3 Tips app. P3 Tips app for a Campus Crime Stopper. And of course, that number is 833 TIPS or 833-8477. Being able to participate and relay information if they don't want to come out publicly and relay it to law enforcement or administration on the campus, that route would definitely be very supportive. Overall, parents continue to stay actively engaged with your children's teachers and their principals to show that they also can make sure that that information is being correlated or communicated in terms of that might be a concern that may be presented to us or even to the administration so that we can better support as well as serve your children. So those things I believe can be very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your just thank you. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Tuesday, another podcast. And on Sunday, guys, we want to make sure you all know that we're going to have our round table talk on next Sunday, the 13th. So I'll see you on Tuesday, and I'll see you on Sundays at 7 p.m. right here at Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. We'd like to thank our listeners as well who has listened to the show or will listen to the show in the future. It is going all over the place. Our show is on Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Amazon Live, and we are on all social media platforms. So if you had missed this show, had time to listen to it, please listen to it. And if you're on YouTube, hey, click the red button to subscribe to us. Okay? Thank you again, everybody. We love you. We bless you. And hey, Chief Malbrough. Listen, hey, we got to get together. I got some creative ideas, which I like to do.
Yes, sir.
Discuss with you so we can keep everybody involved in our community. Okay?
Sounds good. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Thank you for watching Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Be sure to like and subscribe to all Knowledge is Power social media pages.